Good morning, class. Today we will be doing our science lesson on insect investigations and using our five senses to look at the difference between insects that are real and those that are not real. We're also going to focus on learning the names of the insects and at least their basic body parts. So first we're going to start by looking at pictures of some insects that you might be familiar with. My guess is you've definitely seen one of these. Sometimes they sting, but one thing that is good about these is that they make honey, which might be something that you enjoy, say, putting on your toast at breakfast time. So moving on to the next insect that we're going to look at. Many people don't like these. They're often scared of them, but they do spin webs, and they are amazing to look at because they have so many details. This is a spider. So looking at the next picture, this is probably something you've seen hopping around your backyard. They're actually kind of fun to watch. This is a grasshopper. So moving on to the next one, these look sort of like grasshoppers, but they're bigger, they stand a little differently. This is called a praying mantis. So this is an insect coming up that you have probably seen many, many times. People often consider them to be good luck. They're actually really good to have in gardens for keeping away pests, and they actually help the plants with their growth as well. This is a ladybug. So I know that you know these next two. This is something that you're probably familiar with. Maybe you've seen at least a video about them turning into butterflies. This is a caterpillar. And we're just going to follow up the caterpillar naturally with the butterfly, since we just talked about caterpillars transforming into butterflies. So what we're going to do is I'm going to have you share which of these insects that we just looked at in these pictures is your favorite. So I absolutely agree. I think caterpillars are my favorite. Also, it's amazing to watch the process of them turning into butterflies. So the next thing we're going to do is look at an insect poster that lists at least the basic parts of an insect. I just used an ant as an example because the names of the body parts are pretty close, at least to what we would see with the other ones. So we're going to start with looking at the abdomen, which on an insect is actually in the back. We're so used to thinking of that being in the middle, but on an ant and other insects, it is often right back here. So then we're going to look at his legs. Now this ant has 6 legs. Not all insects have 6 legs. That's a pretty common number, but we're just using this as an example of where the legs are located. So looking in the middle, this part is called the thorax. Now this is also another common name for this part of the insect. So this part obviously is named just like ours would be. These are the insect's eyes. And these up here that give the ant the ability to touch and feel and use its senses are called the antennas, which it would also be called that on most insects as well. So I'm going to have you raise your hand and share at least one of the body parts that we just reviewed on this poster. All right, I'll just give you 1 minute to think about it, and then we will raise our hands and share. All right, you did a great job naming the parts of the insects that we just looked over. So now what we're going to do to help us remember is to look at real insects that are actually placed in something called acrylic. It's just to protect them, but all of these insects were alive and real at some point, so now they're in here so we can hand them out and we can study them and we can look at them. I'll give you a period of about 15 minutes, and each student in class will get one of these little magnifying glasses, and they can use it to look very closely at the insect and look at the different parts of the insect. I will move around the room when you're looking at these insects to help you identify them. I have a bug identification book that I will carry around the room to help with that process. And that's actually right here. It's really neat. It actually came with the kit, this bug identification guide, and it has pictures of each and every bug that's located in this kit. So you can look at the parts. I'm going to have you name at least one of the body parts of each insect as I move around the room. And of course, when you're done, you can exchange these with the students around you if you want to investigate and study different insects. Right, so now that that's done and I've moved around the room, you've all done a great job identifying at least one body part and the names of the insects with the help of the book. So we're going to look at this one more time, and I'm going to see if you can maybe identify the parts of this insect a little more easily after you looked at examples of the real insect. Alright, so we're going to look at this one more time. Can you tell me this part of the insect? Alright, how about this part? That's right, that's the thorax. And these are its eyes, that's right. And 6 legs, good job. And its abdomen, and you remembered that it was in the back. So you did a very good job remembering the parts of the insects after looking at real insects. So now that you've shared a name of the insect you studied, we're going to do something that's really fun that will help you to remember the difference between real insects and those that aren't. So I put together this sensory bin, which is really neat. It's got some dried beans in it. It's got scoops that you can use to look for these different plastic insects. You'll see as you lift it, you'll find different plastic insects inside, and there's multiple tools that you can dig with, so all students will be able to reach in here and find the insects. So we're also going to use the small magnifying glass again that you used before, so you can study these insects more closely. And as you do that, we're going to talk about the names and characteristics of these insects. So I'm going to have you raise your hands to share that after you've had some time to go through the sensory bin and locate these bugs and have a chance to really notice some of their features. Okay, so now that you've had time to go through the sensory bin, I'm going to have you raise your hands to share and talk about some of the similarities and differences that you noticed from, say, one of the insects that you found in the sensory bin compared to some of the real insects that you looked at and studied with your own magnifying glass. So some of the differences between the plastic insects and the real insects, obviously the real insects were living at one point. Those plastic bugs were never living. When those insects in that kit were alive, they moved on their own. They needed food and water to survive. They could breathe. So that is some of the differences. The plastic bugs never could breathe. They didn't need food and water to survive. They're a toy, even though they're fun. They're very, very different than the real bugs that are located in that kit. So just to help us remember the parts of the bugs in a way that is fun and enjoyable, we're going to take these pattern mats, and there's different types of pattern mats. There's ones with colors that you can use to identify the shapes needed, or if you want more of a challenge, there's one that is empty and you can just look for the right colors and shapes on your own and you can fill it in. We have the blocks actually pre-separated into some bags so you can locate the shapes you need. We obviously have ones for each insect. And I found these insect patterns on a site that I often use called Teachers Pay Teachers. There's actually a lot of really fun things on here that I often use for our lessons. So I'm just going to give you some time to complete these patterns. Just let me know by raising your hand if you want one of the patterns with colors, or if you want one of the ones that's empty and you think that this is something that you would like to do and you're ready for. So I'm just going to give you about 15 minutes to go through and put together those patterns. And I'm going to come around and I'm going to ask you to share the various shapes and colors that you used when you were putting together these insect patterns. Okay, now that that is complete, I'm going to give you a bug outline to take home. You can color this with whatever you want. You can paint it at home. You can make this insect look any way you want to, and you can either choose to keep it at home, or you can bring it back to class to share if you wish. Okay, class, now do you have any questions about the differences between insects that are real or those that aren't real, such as the ones that we found in the sensory bin? If you have any more questions, you can always come to me after this lesson is over or any time after class. And I hope that you enjoyed investigating insects and learning about the differences between living and non-living insects and looking at some of their features.